Week 2, and it's already started. How about them Cowboys?
If you thought the New Orleans Saints were going to be bad or even mid this season, do I have news for you. 2 weeks into the season, and the New Orleans Saints in back-to-back weeks now have scored the most points of any NFL team. And not only that, but they've been able to play some pretty damn near flawless football too, from most importantly, Derek Carr too. And I think we finally got a true glimpse of how scary this New Orleans Saints team can be this year. I mean, from start to finish, in the 2 weeks of regular season football, the Saints have absolutely dominated their opponents in the 8 quarters of football they have played. And I don't want to jump the gun because week 1 was against the Panthers, but they did just beat a really good Cowboys team, and the Saints look well equipped if they keep playing this well to make a playoff run this year. And now look, I mean, coming into this game, a lot of people were thinking the Saints could pull off the upset, but weren't expecting what would happen, because today versus the Cowboys, the Saints absolutely walked into Dallas and spanked Dak and the boys. It took the Saints less than 5 minutes to put the first of many touchdowns on the board, just leaning into the run game on Kamara and going 7 plays, 80 yards in just 4 minutes. And honestly, following that drive, the Cowboys did answer with a field goal and looked like it was going to be a hard-nosed game for both of these teams, kind of trading blows back and forth. But then the second Saints drive of the game, it would take Derek Carr and the Saints 9 seconds to absolutely break this game open. And look, pretty much from there on out, the Saints looked absolutely unstoppable on offense. Following both of these teams trading touchdowns and field goals, it was the Cowboys' ball on their own 32-yard line, with the score being 28-13 midway through the second quarter. So a touchdown on this drive would without a doubt keep the Cowboys in this game, but the highest paid quarterback in the NFL would go on to throw an interception. And following that interception, in less than a minute, yet again, the Saints would go down and get a touchdown on a Derek Carr quarterback sneak. And of course, my boy had to stun on the Cowboys too. But luckily, the Cowboys think that field goals will win games, and they got one before half to make the score 35-16. And good news, they wouldn't score another touchdown for the rest of this game from that point on. Like, to be frank, from that point on, it was just all Saints. Coming out of half, the Cowboys would put up a field goal, but the Saints would respond with a 13-play, 70-yard, 8-minute drive to end with a touchdown and put the score at 41-19. Thankfully, though, Dak wasn't done and would do what Dak does best and throw another interception to Tyrann Mathieu. And I mean, this one did look pretty bad, and honestly, Dak just didn't look great the entire game. From there on out, it was just all Saints, and honestly, just a very impressive performance from the Saints. And now 2 weeks in a row, Derek Carr has looked like prime Derek Carr from 2015 and is proving all the haters wrong, including myself, and showing why he's worth the 4-year, $150 million contract that he was signed to 2 years ago. In 2 weeks now, Derek Carr has now totaled over 400 passing yards and 5 touchdowns, as well as one of the highest passer ratings in the first 2 weeks of the league. And I mean, to make things even sweeter, Derek Carr on every single drive this season has been absolutely perfect, leading 15 scoring drives out of 17, and at one point during this game was even 15 of 15, scoring on every single time he had possessed the ball. I mean, Derek Carr had a nice tidy stat line of 11 for 16, 243 yards and 2 touchdowns, and a garbage time interception if you want to call it that. But I think one of the stars of the show was Alvin Kamara, who had 20 carries on 115 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, this dude was the do-it-all prime Alvin Kamara that we are used to seeing, and honestly looks like he is going to make this offense a lot scarier this year. But one of the most surprising players this year in all of the entire NFL, but especially for the Saints, is Rashid Shaheed, who had 4 receptions for 96 yards, including the 70-yard bomb from Derek Carr in the first quarter to break this game completely open. And honestly, I think the most impressive thing too is how well this defense played today against the Cowboys, and did it without their all-pro cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, who was inactive today. Like, I mean, hell, coming into this season, the expectations from a lot of Saints fans, including myself and people from around the league too, is that the Saints weren't going to be very good. And hell, even Chris Olave, when asked who stood out in training camp, said this, and we all remember it.
There been a play, whether an individual or team period out here, that's made you kind of stop and been like, oh, we're going to be good this year?
I mean,
it's okay if it was your own.
yeah, not really.
But now 2 weeks into the season, and the Saints look like a legit threat in the NFC. One of the biggest question marks from this offseason too for the Saints was all along the offensive line, returning only 2 starters from last year, as well as being ranked 31st by PFF in their preseason ranking. But following week 1, they were one of the best O-lines in pass blocking, and now after week 2, against one of the best defensive units in the NFL, has only allowed 2 sacks this season. And personally for me, I think that's largely in part to Alvin Kamara and how well they have been able to run the ball this this year. Like, the run game is effectively helping the passing game, which is allowing them to open up the play action game even more for Derek Carr and allowing for him to look even like his prime self. The Saints used play action on 40% of Derek Carr's dropbacks, the third most of any starting quarterback in the NFL in week 1, and far beyond the 14.8% play action usage that Carr saw in 2023. I mean, I haven't got the stats yet from week 2, but on those 10 play action dropbacks from week 1, Carr went 7 for 9 for 58 yards and a touchdown, earning an 83.7 PFF passing grade. Like, I mean, hell, if the Saints can keep running the ball this well, allowing for the play action game to open up even more and just make it that much more effective, then this is going to be a scary team for sure. Like, I mean, hell, their 2 longest plays this year have both been off of play action passes and have been beautiful passes by Carr. And look, without a doubt, coming into this season, Derek Carr was one of the biggest question marks around the entire NFL, but especially on this Saints roster. But after today, and even after I saw this tweet, it really made me realize how Derek Carr might have just needed some time to get into the right system and build a better relationship with his pass catchers and just the entire team with his teammates. I mean, the fact that Derek Carr in his last 6 games, including dating back to last season, has these kind of stats shows that if he can keep playing like this, these Saints will be set for this year. One of the big talking points too about Derek Carr is how many people have noticed how he does tend to struggle in new offensive schemes, which the Saints do now have in Clint Kubiak, who is the new and unproven offensive coordinator. And look, I mean, after just 2 weeks, the dude has been calling amazing games, and Carr and the boys have been executing them perfectly. The offensive output the past 2 weeks under the fresh vision of Kubiak legitimately reminds me of the prolific era with Drew Brees. I mean, it's the accuracy of Carr, it's the complementary rushing attack with Kamara and his 4 combined touchdowns, as well as it's the big playability of receivers like Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave. Not only that, but the creative play calling on Kubiak's end is phenomenal too, and the offensive line, which was feared to be awful, has held up very well, especially against the Micah Parsons-led Cowboys defense they faced this week. And now look, I'm not saying we should expect 40 points from the Saints every single week, but what I am saying is that Dennis Allen hiring Clint Kubiak was definitely the right move and should be rewarded for that. Like, I mean, look, Clint Kubiak might be the answer because after all, he was inside of the Shanahan coaching tree, working alongside Kyle Shanahan, and I'm sure learned a lot from him. But not only that, being able to coach up Carr all offseason and build up this offense even more and allow for these guys to go out, ball, and average 45 points through 2 games is absolutely insane. So who knows, maybe the former offensive coordinator and Pete Carmichael was the problem for the Saints. And now look, I think for Derek Carr, as I said earlier in this video, to go on and have scoring drives on 15 out of his first 15 drives of the season was absolutely insane. Like, that is incredible for him to be able to do that. It just helps the defense that much more too, because now they know they don't need to get a stop every single time. They can hold them to a field goal. Their offense is going to go score points. Like, it's just really starting to make it seem like a lot of people are starting to believe in the Saints and they can get the job done. Another big question mark that this Saints team had coming into the season was this defensive unit, as they honestly had the possibility of being a top 10 unit, but are also one of the older groups in the NFL. But now through these 2 games, the defense is absolutely flying around and looks great behind Tyrann Mathieu, Demario Davis, and even Chase Young getting their own. And now look, I'm going to come out and say it because I am a Saints fan and I got to own up to what I said, but I didn't like Derek Carr coming into the season. I was a Derek Carr hater. I need to write an apology letter to him. But if he keeps playing like this and they can continue this type of dominance, there is no reason the Saints cannot win the NFC South and make a playoff run this year. But the true question is after these 2 dominant wins in back-to-back weeks, where do the Saints go from here? And personally for me, I think if Derek Carr and the defense and Alvin Kamara can keep playing the way that they are right now, it's just going to get better and better, and they're going to have just such a high ceiling this year. I mean, their schedule and upcoming games are against some opponents that are a bit better in the Eagles, Falcons, and then they have to head to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs, which will definitely be a tough game. But I mean, in all honesty, they just beat one of the best defenses in the NFL in the Cowboys. So if they can beat them, I don't know why they can't beat any of those teams that I did just mention. They do have one of the tougher schedules in the NFL, but who knows? Maybe they can finish with 9 or even 10 wins and get into the playoffs and make a run from there. I mean, at this point, honestly, I think the Saints are really just playing so loosely and freely because they really have nothing to lose, and you can see it in the type of play that we're seeing out of Derek Carr as well as inside of this defense too. I mean, they've got enough of the supporting cast to go out and make a run, and that's exactly what they're doing right now. Last year they were a 9-8 team, but honestly, they didn't look like a 9-8 team, especially with Dennis Allen thinking that field goals would win games, and a lot of people were pissed at Derek Carr. But this year the narrative has completely been flipped, and people are beginning to pay attention to the New Orleans Saints. As for the Dallas Cowboys, well, I hope that this isn't what they paid Dak all that money for, because if he's just going to be out there to be putting field goals on the board and such, then they may need to rethink why they paid him all of that money. Also, another big talking point from this game, I believe, is the Cowboys defense. They're going to be a lot to blame, and probably where the blame should start. Like, I mean, it's one one thing to get scored on constantly, but it's another thing for it to come as easily as it did for the Saints. And then, I mean, on top of that too, the Cowboys offense did like nothing to respond to all of the scoring the Saints were doing, but the defense was definitely the primary responsibility for the loss today. I mean, their defensive front didn't get any pressure on Carr, who absolutely picked apart the Cowboys secondary and arguably needs to be reevaluated for how bad that rush defense was today too. I think Mike Zimmer is definitely going to need to go back to the drawing board, especially taking over the defense from such a prime and good defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn. Like, these results were as bad as they've been in recent memory. But I want to know what you guys think. How good are the Saints this year? Is this just like an anomaly these first 2 weeks that they're playing this well, or are they actually going to continue playing this well this season? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you guys have not, I am running a giveaway over on my Twitter for an autographed CJ Stroud helmet. Actually, I have it right here. So if you want to be entered into that, make sure you guys are like, commenting, and subscribing, and head over to my Twitter so that way we can run more of these. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next one.